One fellow who did have a chance to discuss a lot of things with Beckman-Fried is Robert Mowry, who had an hour-long conversation with him on these and other matters before, of course, everything went kablooey. Robert, good to have you. What do you make of things that have happened since that conversation and your insights, which were remarkable, by the way, at the time, on what you're learning now about his arrest and what he faces?
Well, with the testimony, John Ray is just doubling down on his earlier points. This is unprecedented, that the interaction between Alameda and FTX is, in fact, pretty intimate and not being as it was represented by Sam Bankman-Fried. And to the earlier reporter that was talking about the possible person that was the whistleblower, I asked Sam in our interview about Caroline Ellison going to New York, being spotted outside of a coffee shop of the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he was aware of it and was contemplative about her role in terms of her having a hard job. But at the end of the day, I think he knew that the writing was on the wall at this point.
Robert, what about, and I raised this before, a lot of people maybe grasping for straws here, you're the expert, certainly not myself, the Bernie Madoff comparison with trying to bring in some big names, keeping them happy, paying them, and sort of using them as the sort of ringleaders to bring in other big names, a classic Ponzi scheme. Now, do you see any similarities here, especially with the bold-faced names, actors and celebrities and the like, that Bankman-Fried was able to win over and commit to endorsing, anything crypto and anything certainly with him in the early game?
Certainly, tastemakers are an important part of the FTX marketing strategy. We're seeing the fallout where he would buy influence at The Block or various publications to ideally get more flowery coverage. But when it comes to a fraud of this size, that it's going to impact 1 million people, there's only so much you can do with representatives. I mean, the Madoff situation impacted less than 40,000 people, mostly well-heeled. But the broad swath of people that this impacts is so large that even whatever you might pay someone can only do so much relative to the public opinion.
You know, you mentioned something interesting that was, again, different from the Madoff case, that even those who weren't necessarily hurt or had any exposure to FTX, if, let's say you were in Bitcoin or anything of blockchain technology that took it on the chin, in part, or sometimes in large part, because of this investigation and failure and ultimate bankruptcy, you have a much larger case to make against the guy, don't you?
You definitely do, and a lot of the people that are most angry with him in the industry are unhappy because he did commingle those funds. And in the interview, we talked extensively about that, how you need to segment funds for spot traders versus margin traders. And now we're learning that not only that, but he commingled between FTX US International and US, which was a real sharp dividing line. And that is one of the biggest sticking points that John Ray is trying to talk about in the testimony today, that he actively has been gambling with U.S. citizens' funds.
Do you think he goes to jail for the rest of his life?
I really do. I think that Madoff got the 150, and you don't want to be the subject of the government setting an example. And in this situation, there's so many crosshairs on him and so much attention on him that to do anything other than completely throwing the book at him would be bad optics. So I do think that he spends the rest of his life in jail, or at least an extended amount of his life behind bars at some sort of white-collar facility.
Amazing. Robert Mowry, thank you so much, Robert. You've been a big help to sort of figuring this craziness out, and it is widespread craziness and now potential criminality as well.